All right, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us in this masterclass. So what we've got today is a spotlight topic. We're zooming in on investing in brand new, off the plan and house and land packages. So anything where you're the first owner and the first occupier of a property, or your tenant is the first occupier of the property. So anything brand new is what we'll be focusing on today, and their viability as investment grade stock.
That's right.
So just before we begin, we do have to go through the disclaimers. We are not brokers, we are not accountants, we are buyer's agents. So we don't replace your broker or your accountant or your other professionals. What we do is we advise you on the best investment properties to buy, the best strategy to utilize. We look at your information and we look at your situation, your risk profile and so on, and we make recommendations about the sorts of properties you should buy. So today our focus is on brand new properties. With that being said, this masterclass obviously has not taken into account your personal circumstances. So if you have a look there at our legal disclaimer, we just make it very clear there that we haven't done an assessment of your finances or your situation. So the advice contained in this masterclass is pitched to an average or a general audience, not necessarily you specifically. So the information that you receive today, it's up to you to apply it to your personal circumstances, or of course, if you want us to do that for you and to elaborate more specifically to you, of course, you'll have an opportunity to book in with Dragan for a 15-minute call. We'll pop up the QR code for that in a moment. But first, I just want to show you where this particular topic fits in our Spotlight webinar series. So as you can see there on the screen, we run 10 themes or 10 sort of broader topics, and then within each one, there are 2 subtopics. So you can see there that this is subtopic 1 for week 1 or for subject 1. So today we're looking at investing in brand new off the plan and house and land. The twin topic to that, of course, is investing in established properties. So where you are not the first owner, the property might be 5, 10, 15 years old. Somebody has lived in it before you've purchased it, so it's established.
Yep.
If you want to catch that masterclass, and I recommend that you do because that one and this one are the pigeon pair for this topic, we strongly suggest that you do try and catch the pairs as they come. So you can see down that list, webinar 1, webinar 2, they are paired. So today's class does pair up with the class on established properties. So again, if you do book that call with Dragan, you can see why he might recommend one over the other to you specifically. So what we've got up on the screen at the moment there is a QR code. If you do want to have a conversation with Dragan individually about your specific circumstances, do click on put your camera on the QR code and follow the link, or there is a link there, propertysession.com.au/15. So if anything you hear today resonates with you, or if you're still battling between, do I invest new, do I invest in established, definitely try and catch both masterclasses and or book in a call with Dragan.
That's right. So hi guys, Dragan here. You probably already know that by now. So a little bit about myself. I'm sure you would have probably seen on the other masterclass, right? So my background is pretty much growing up in commission housing. I'm going to keep it short. Commission housing grew up with, a type of upbringing where parents did love me. They meant, all the best for me, but unfortunately all the kids around me, had the best of everything where, I had the cheap Kmart shoes, which nothing wrong with that, but, kind of get teased at a little bit when you do grow up, especially having a name Dragan. On top of that, doesn't help. So it's one of those things that I guess I strived when I grew up. I didn't want that for myself, but also for my kids, with them not going to school and being teased because they didn't have. So there was a bit of a burning desire and a drive for me to achieve. And I guess going through life, I studied electrical engineering. That sort of wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Fell into photography, and to keep a long story short, someone within the building that was working there guided me to pretty much get into property investing. That was roughly over 20 years ago. And now fast forward today, having a successful portfolio that brings in passive income and, doing well for myself, and now also teaching my own kids how to invest in property. Obviously, they're still too young, but just putting that in their mind, planting the seed at an early age. So am I missing anything here?
Sounds like a great journey.
There you go.
Yeah. My journey is a little bit different. Unlike Dragan, I'm not the child of migrants, I'm the grandchild of migrants. So there's another, I suppose, generation of wealth building there. So I've inherited my parents' wisdom. I suppose I've learnt from their mistakes as well. They did fairly well. They were, very much buy and hold, very conservative. So because I've got them as a safety net, I'm a little bit more aggressive in my own journey. So I started off with a background in teaching. I taught English secondary, high school. I taught in a boys' school for nearly 10 years. So I cut my teeth there, which was good. Always have loved teaching and educating and that sort of thing. So that's now why I'm doing this. But, in another area for another topic, I love property investing. I've done it since I bought my first property at 21. My parents very much pushed me into it because I was a very typical 21-year-old and property and the future was not on my mind.
Fine.
Can I say it, if I am ethnic parents, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house. When you're 5 years old, buy a house, buy a house. That's all you hear growing up, buy a house. It gets drummed into, I'm sure many of you can relate, we're very multicultural here in Australia and it's what they know, right? Bricks and mortar, it's what they know, mum and dad, I want to travel, mum and dad, I want to move out, what's the typical response? What for?
Yeah.
What for?
Well.
Buy a house. And now I find myself doing the same with my kids and you mean well, you want to set them up and so they never have to struggle. And I'm now 15 odd years later myself reaping the rewards of that advice, buy a house. So my journey's been a little bit different to Dragan's. I had that push, whereas he was a lot more self-motivated. But once I had that first property, I got hungry, really hungry to keep going. And I realize now it's the first one that has to get you started. And once you get started, you're all in, right? Because you see and you learn and you do. So here I am.
Yeah, that's right. But it's also, getting the first one right as well, which is, I know a lot of people that have made the mistake and purchased the wrong one, and it just pushes them away from investing ever again.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that, doing the right one, the right property the first time, the right time, makes a big difference.
Yeah. I think once you're bitten, you become shy.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So you want to avoid getting bitten too early, because then you have to then overcome the fear of the bite and then the original fear of getting it right. Could make a rhyme out of that. So you want to try and get it right the first time, so you're only having to overcome one fear instead of two. So that brings us into the topic for today, which is buying brand new. So off the plan house and land packages, but the angle I want to take first is buying brand new but already established. So it's already built, it's already completed, the occupation certificate is there. You're just the first purchaser and owner. So it might be somebody who's done a knockdown rebuild and they're flipping it. Or it could be a developer that's, sold everything in the pre-sales and you're just buying the last release of that development. So you're not buying off the plan. You can see it, you can walk through it, you can do an inspection, but it is still brand new in the sense that nobody's lived there yet. You are the first owner. So in terms of buying brand new but established, this is sort of like that grey area in between, because you're not buying off the plan, you're not buying uncertainty, you are buying something that you can see, the fixtures, the finishes, the quality, you can still see it and walk through it before committing to the purchase. But for, your tax purposes and all the rest of it, it is still brand new. So how can you purchase brand new strategically? The most strategic part of this is that you know what you're buying. Because it's newly built, the quality is known. You get your full 6-year builder's warranty. So there are certain consumer laws in place to protect you against poor workmanship or tradespeople that have cut corners or not built to the Australian standards. So you still get your full 6 years. If you are the second owner and you buy, say, a 2-year-old property, you still get the balance of the 4 years. But in this case, you'd get the entirety of the 6. You can be a little bit strategic in terms of oversupply. So say you're purchasing in an area where there's a whole bunch of house and land packages and there's 100 house and land packages due to be released at the same time. If you're one of the people that's bought off the plan one of those house and land packages, you run the risk of oversupply when they all settle at the same time, because when they all settle at the same time, what's everyone looking for at the same time?
Place to buy.
Tenants.
Tenants. Tenants.
Place to live. Place to live.
That's what I meant to say.
Tenants. So if they all settle at the same time, they're looking for tenants at the same time, you've just flooded your own market. Whereas if you wait till they're already built, you can sort of get a feel for, okay, well, this proportion of them are owner occupiers, this proportion were purchased by investors, so this is how much the market's going to be flooded. You might sort of strategically wait, let the rental pool sort of soak up the demand, And then you might go a month later, look, the developer can't sell these half a dozen. You offer a lower price, you try and pick up one of them, and then you're sort of after that little bump of oversupply, and then you recreate that scarcity. You still get your depreciation benefits. Depreciation goes for the 40 years. So if you catch our other masterclass, our big one, we explain depreciation a bit more there. I'll explain it briefly in a moment. But when you purchase brand new or you purchase any property under 40 years old, you do get a tax benefit called depreciation. The other thing with buying newer rather than older is ideally fewer maintenance requests. And there's a bit of controversy there with recent workmanship quality and, developers cutting costs. And, we all know about the Opal Towers, for example, if you're Sydney based. So the idea that there are fewer maintenance requests on a new property may not stack up if you had a builder or developer that was cutting costs or, not quite building the way they should. So be careful with that one. I've put it there as a bit of a perk, but again, buying brand new established, check the quality, get your building report done. Even though it's brand new, it doesn't mean it was perfectly built. So still be a little bit clever there. And then, of course, buying brand new but established, you might have the opportunity to buy when supply is at its highest for a discounted price. So just say the developer has really struggled to sell during the construction period. Say the market's depressed, the developer's committed to this project, but, the market's dipped in the meantime and is really struggling to sell these off the plan. The developer might be left with excess stock at the time of settlement when he gets his occupation certificate. So at that point, he's got to offload, right? Because he doesn't have the construction time buying him time to sell them. So once they all, come time to be occupied, he's going to want to offload them. If he's got a few to offload, you've got a bit of oversupply, you might be able to pick them up a bit cheaper. So brand new established gives you the advantage of observing first. You know what you're buying into in terms of flooding the market. You know the proportion of owner-occupiers versus renters. You know the quality of the build, the quality of the developer. You know the project is going to be completed because you're purchasing it after completion. It eliminates a lot of those risks and uncertainties. So what you should look for is not getting sucked into purchasing too soon. So a lot of developers will try to create a fear of missing out. Oh, we only have 25 in this stage. There might be 90 in stage 2. But
20%.
or whatever it may be, they create scarcity because they release them in stages, right? So they go, oh, you got to buy in this stage because in the next stage the prices are going up, or, they'll come up with ways to make you feel like you have to purchase right now. So try not to get sucked into purchasing too soon. It's in their interest to sell as much as possible before completion, because if they wait and hold on to too many until completion, then they've oversupplied their own market. And that, gives us the next point. Ensure oversupply will not become an ongoing issue. So if you're purchasing a whole bunch of houses in one development that all look the same, you want to make sure that ongoing, if there's a high turnover in that development, that you're not constantly dealing with oversupply. So if your one goes on the market, say you want to sell your development, your one goes on the market, but there are 6 others in that same estate that are exactly the same because everyone bought the same house and land package. Well, you're competing with 6 other identical houses on the market at the same time. In a development of 200, the odds of 5 or 6 being on the market at the same time is fairly high. So you want to be really careful you're not signing up for oversupply even after you've purchased, because when you want to sell, you're at the mercy of that consensus price. Same with building, apartment buildings, strata buildings. There's 200 units in the block. Then whatever the other ones sell for instantly become comparables for yours, and people will use that as negotiation strategies. So all you need is one lazy real estate agent or one distressed vendor elsewhere in the building that sells for a discount, and all of a sudden you then have to sell at a discount, because why would a buyer pay more than what he paid for that one?
That's right. It affects it.
So it affects it because there's no scarcity.
Yeah.
They're all built the same. So next one there, too many identical properties reduces selling power. You also want to know your build quality, finishes and fixtures. You want to be able to see it first. So buying brand new established is kind of like buying established, but if you want brand new, that's one way to mitigate your risk of buying brand new. So super quickly, depreciation. Did you want to do the depreciation?
No, you go for it.
Happy to keep going.
You're in a role. That's, this is why she was a teacher.
Get used to yapping all day.
She was good.
All right. So how does depreciation work? We kind of inevitably stumble into this topic in all of our masterclasses. So I feel like I'm just verbatim. I could just copy and paste my own spiel every time. But I'll keep it quick this time. If you want to know more about depreciation, catch the other masterclass, the main one, because we go into a lot more detail there. But essentially, depreciation recognizes that the value of an asset is in the land, not the dwelling. So while the value of the land goes up, the value of the building goes down because it is subject to wear and tear. So what the government does is it introduces a tax incentive to compensate for that wear and tear, particularly in the case of a property being rented, because it accelerates the rate of wear and tear when you have tenants living in the property. So the way they've structured depreciation is that the assumption is that the life cycle of a dwelling or the life expectancy of a built structure is 40 years. So over the 40 years, at a rate of 2.5% per year, the value of that structure goes from 100% to 0%. So 40 years at a rate of 2.5% per year. So if the cost of the build contract is $600,000, 2.5% of $600,000 is $15,000. So every year, $15,000 for 40 years is deducted from your taxable income. So if you earn $100,000 and you have a depreciable event of $15,000 per year, then you'll be taxed on $85,000 of your income, not $100,000. So you'll have already paid that tax in your pay slips and your earnings. And then as a tax return, you'll get back that difference. So people use tax incentives or tax returns as like forced savings, and they use their return each year as an investment, as a deposit for their next purchase. It's a form of forced savings, and it's an interesting, I suppose, approach to take to investing because you're deliberately ripping yourself off to force yourself to save for your next deposit. So we always say that tax incentives should be the icing on the cake, but not the actual main part of the meal. You don't want to invest for tax purposes. You want the tax purposes to be the perks. So if you're drawn to brand new properties for the depreciation, I would caution you against that.
Yep.
Simply because you can claim depreciation on anything less than 40 years old.
So it doesn't have to be new, yeah.
No, so that $15,000 per year stands for 40 years. So you could buy the property in the 30th year and still claim that depreciation at the exact same rate as if you had purchased it first. The only disadvantage is that some of those 40 years have already been consumed before your purchase. But then you've purchased something with a better value proposition, which you'll see when you see the twin masterclass to this, where we talk about buying established. So today we're just talking brand new, but if you want to see how buying something further down the 40 years is advantageous, hop onto the other masterclass and have a look at why investors buy established properties. But for now, brand new, one of the perks of brand new that is touted to people is depreciation. It is a benefit, but I don't know that it's a perk. There's a key distinction there. A benefit is a happy consequence of a decision. A perk, it's there. It's not the reason I would do it. Okay, so what about depreciation on something partially new? So what we mean here is, okay, Amanda, you just said that depreciation gives me 40 years on the build price. What if after 30 years, the kitchen is renovated? Well, the kitchen resets the 40-year clock on the kitchen component. So it's 40 years on each component. So if you were to buy a property, we'll call it secondhand, you get a quantity surveyor come in to write what's called a depreciation schedule. So they'll actually assess the age of each component of the property. So if the bathrooms are 10 years old, the kitchen is 20 years old, this is that, or whatever, they'll create a schedule for each individual component. So you don't forfeit any portion of that 40 years on anything that might have been renovated. So if you put a $30,000 kitchen in, then that $30,000 component has a fresh 40-year clock on it at 2.5% of that $30,000 per year. So again, this is where renovations can come in handy. When you buy brand new, you're buying new and shiny. It's like a new car out of the showroom. That 40 years of depreciation applies to anything brand new. Renovations, a house that's less than 40 years old, it does not have to be brand new. There tends to be a myth that you can only get depreciation if you're the first owner of a property. That is not true. You can be the second, third, fourth, fifth owner. It doesn't matter. it's not measured by what owner you are, it's measured by the age of the property or the age of the structures within that property if they're under 40 years.
Yep.
Did you want to add anything? Because
No, I was just going to say you're doing such a good job.
Thank you. Depreciation comes up a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
And look, I guess one of the main questions I get asked is, hey, if I purchase a 40-year-old house and it's hasn't been touched for those 40 years, and I do a full renovation inside out, can I depreciate? Yes, you can over 40 years.
Yeah, so anything new
That's right.
is depreciable. Just make sure that if you do renovate, you get that depreciation schedule from a quantity survey, which is a couple of $100, and then that document, give that to your accountant, and then it'll go through your tax return. You don't have to do anything. It's there for the 40 years.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's buying brand new established. Next, I want to look at brand new off the plan, specifically strata titled buildings. So things like units, some townhouse or most townhouses are strata, duplex halves, sometimes they can be strata or times titled. Anything where you're contributing a quarterly fee for the use of common areas. Okay. So buying these, there's different timings or different opportunistic windows of opportunity to buy off the plan. So when a developer wants to build a unit block, I shouldn't use the Opal Towers as I was going to use the Opal Towers, but that's a bad example because we know what happened to those. Say a reputable developer is building a big unit tower, they've got however many units in there. They have to secure finance for that. It's very unlikely that a developer's got enough cash to slap up 100 years slap up.
Yep.
I'm ticking up their attitude. That's what they do. They slap them up and then you buy them. Don't buy them. So they build ethically and responsibly with high quality, high-end fixtures. And I sit there. Look, I'm yet to find one, but apparently they exist as good investment grade stock.
Sure.
Do we need to edit this? Or
let's keep it.
we're having fun. All right. We are in a very nice investment grade strata titled off the plan opportunity. It's exclusive. We're top-notch investors for even getting a look in at this one. There are 4 different stages that you can purchase. The first is at the concept stage. So this is where the developer's gone, okay, I've got this raw site. I want to develop this project. I've got my concept drawings. I haven't gone through council yet. I don't have council approval yet. I haven't done any of that stuff. I just want to make sure that if I do this, people are going to buy it. So that's when you go, when you go to the shopping centres and they have those little kiosks and they set up and they have the big posters and they've got some poor sod sitting there trying to get people to talk to them. This is the stage I'm talking about.
Nice and shiny pictures.
Oh, they look great.
Great with the Mercedes-Benz at the front.
Sometimes they offer you the car with them as well.
They do.
So you can purchase at the concept stage. So at that point, they're selling you a vision and they'll often request a very small deposit, like for $1,000, register your interest or whatever, register your commitment. So you can get in really early at concept stage. Now, if the market moves, just say, this is 2019 and then you got COVID and the boom and then by the time the project is done, it's, now. Yeah, okay, it could work. But there's a lot of life that happens in that time and you're committing and you just, look at the lending landscape in 2019, 2020, they were giving money away, interest rates were under 2%. Now you're getting assessed at 6.5%, or not assessed, you're getting actual loans at 6.5%. You might not get the finance. I mean, the market's moved, the capital growth is there, but you can't settle because you don't get the finance anymore at 6.5% when you signed that contract at 2%. So just be really careful. When the market moves, other things move as well. So you might go, you beauty, this thing's doubled in value before I've even settled. You know what else has doubled? Interest rates.
Yep.
There's a reason why when the market flies, interest rates follow. So you haven't won unless you can actually settle on the purchase. But that's a topic for another day. I get very, very passionate about buying off the plan too soon because it's sold to you as, well, you get the capital growth. Yeah, but what happens when markets go up? Interest rates go up, finance tightens.
There's so many unknowns.
Yeah. Yeah. The person that benefits is the person that can settle. So if you're buying these by the skin of your teeth and you can't settle unless interest rates stay low, well, prices won't go up if interest rates don't. If one goes up, the other goes up. You're not going to settle. The person that benefits will be the one that buys your failed contract, the next buyer, not you. Anyway. topic for another day. I'm getting wound up. You should be doing.
No, go. You're doing a great job. Hey, guys, she's great, right?
Okay, so the next
Plastic.
the next opportunity to purchase after concept stage is the finance pre-approval stage. So this is when they've got their ducks a little bit more lined up. They've got their drawings, they've got their concepts, they've gone into council, they've approached their lender. And their lender says, awesome, this project looks great. Prove to me that you can sell it. You need to sell 40% of this development before I'll agree to fund it. So at least I know that the proportion that you've sold makes the project feasible or viable. So this is when they now need a real estate agent because they've got to sell a whole lot more of it. They're not just gathering interest. They're actually genuinely needing to sell a proportion of this before they can qualify for the finance and proceed to construction. So this is where they get a real estate agent on board. This is where they might set up a website. They might set up marketing materials. It's a very difficult job for a real estate agent to sell something that he can't walk his clients through. A real estate agent can approach you and go, hey, I've got this mad development, come and, get on early. But at the end of the day, if you say, hey, I want to see it, they're probably showing you an old building, an old farmhouse, vacant land. There's nothing to look at. It hasn't started yet. So it's a very hard sell for a real estate agent. So what a lot of these developers do is they go to specialist real estate agents who specialize in developer finance pre-sales. So what that is, they create these clubs or these buyers networks or whatever. They have their database of buyers and they pump these off the plan, pre-sale stock to their clients.
Some even call themselves buyer's agents.
Some shouldn't, but call themselves buyer's agents because they call you and approach you with the property. So because they think they've approached you, they're making you think that they act on your behalf. Watch our main masterclass to find out why they don't. Basically, in short, if you're not paying the commission, legally, you're not the one represented. Legally, the one paying the commission is the one that they must represent, which in this case is the developer because the developer is paying the commission. But the developer needs these real estate agents to pre-sell the stock to get the finance. Without finance, they can't build, they can't construct, they can't develop. So they have to sell these to get their finance. So you have an opportunity to buy at that stage. The next stage you can buy during construction. So this is where the real estate agent still has this listing on his books, but he's now got something to show you. He's got a half-built, construction site. Hey, come check it out. It's nearly finished. You can see, oh yeah, that's about a year away. I could buy that. You have an opportunity to buy in the construction stage or the completion stage, which we talked about earlier. Now, the completion stage might be direct from the developer or it might be one of the resales. So you know how I said earlier, if the market moves, interest rates move, people can't settle? What you get when the market goes up is a lot of people going, oh my God, there's all this capital growth, but I can't settle because interest rates have gone up. I've got to sell. So they have to sell the contract. They on-sell the contract or they do some sort of bridging finance or something where they have to offload these distressed sales. So you might pick up a resale, not necessarily direct from the developer, but a resale where the market's moved and people can't settle them. So if you actually look at these with a logical brain, there's not really many scenarios where they work. If you buy them early and the market stays flat, there's no advantage to buying them sooner. You're better off waiting till they're completed. If you buy low and the market goes up, interest rates go up as well, you can't settle. So there's still no benefit there. And if you purchase them early and the market goes down, well, you've got negative growth. You might as well have bought it at the bottom rather than at the top. So there is quite literally zero advantage to buying these early unless you are a cash buyer or you can finance regardless of what interest rates do. Otherwise, there is no advantage to getting in early because the market will go up, because when the market goes up, what else goes up?
Interest rates.
Interest rates. And then when interest rates go up, what happens to finance? Bank says, no. No deal. Okay, let's calm me down. Okay.
Have some water.
All right. Do you want to talk about off the plan?
No. Yeah, you're doing a great job. Guys, she's doing a great job. She's rolling. Please.
Sometimes I roll down the hill too fast. I'm
No, you're great. You're great. Keep going,
Okay.
please.
So we've actually kind of touched on these topics. What kind of agent are you dealing with? Make sure that they are a buyer's agent, not a seller's agent.
Yep.
The best way to know that is who is paying the commission. You think you're saving money by not paying the commission. You're also not the one whose interests are being looked after. So you kind of want to be paying the commission so you know that they're acting for you and your interests. The other thing I want people to be really careful with when buying off the plan is that often there are clauses in the contract that allow for certain tolerances or variations. So it might be tolerance with regards to the dwelling size or in the case of strata, the proportion of the common areas or land that you own. Sometimes these tolerances can be quite large, so people think they're purchasing something bigger or better quality than what they are. The other thing is with fixtures and finishes. They might say to you, SMEG appliances or high-end fixtures, and then that company goes bankrupt, or they've got a clause in the contract that allows for substitutions. What substitution? Are they going to switch out your SMEG for a Bunnings appliance? Apparently the Bunnings ones are pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you're paying for one thing and then getting an inferior product, you don't want to overpay for something that you think you're getting and then not get it. So some of these substitutions, fixtures, fittings, tolerances, variations, be really mindful, particularly in strata buildings where they're building in volume, the same, apartment, one after the other. Because if they're trying to cost cut, if they're realizing that they've blown out costs, blown out timings, and they've got a cost cut, they'll start exercising their rights with these types of things. So be really careful that you're not paying for something that you ultimately do not receive. So any advantages to buying off-the-plan units? No.
Not that I know of.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Look, it's a different story, possibly if they're going to live in it as an owner-occupier, right?
Yeah, if it's something you're emotionally attached to, yeah.
Yeah.
There is one way that I will permit, because, I'm making myself the authority on what I will permit here. There is one way I will permit buying these off the plan. It's not completely risk-free, but if you negotiate in what's called a deed of nomination, which gives you the right to on-sell the contract. So say, for example, we have that scenario where the market goes up and interest rates go up and then you can't settle. You negotiate in the right to sell the contract. So you never have to settle on the property, but by selling the contract at the new market value, you pocket the profit. You still have to pay the capital gains tax, but you pocket the profit without ever actually having to complete the contract yourself because you've sold or on-sold the contract itself. So many developers won't allow that because it doesn't let them control the price. But if you can negotiate in a deed of nomination that gives you the right to on-sell the contract, you can mitigate the risk of a rising market and inability to obtain finance. In the event, though, that the market goes down, you would have to on-sell at a loss. So you're probably better off settling and trying to hold on and recuperate losses, whatever you do there. But in the case of a rising market and tightening lending, then a deed of nomination can be your get out of jail free card because you still pocket the profits without having to settle on the property and get finance. Developers are very reluctant to do that though because they like to control price. They also like to control the release of stock. Imagine if everybody had a deed of nomination in their contracts. You're just flooding the market again. So double-edged sword. But if you're one of the smart ones and one of the only ones with a deed of nomination, it can work to your favour.
Sunset clause?
Sunset clauses, yeah. So I'll talk specifically about New South Wales here because all the different states have different rules. But in New South Wales, we've had recent reforms with regards to sunset clauses. You've probably seen it on the news in the last few years. A lot of people got left a bit high and dry by developers exercising sunset clauses. So what that means is that there'll be a date in the contract where the developer goes, if the project is not, if the contract can't be settled by a certain date, then either party has the unilateral right to rescind that contract. So developers would put that in there for themselves so they could see the market rising. They would delay construction past the sunset date so they could then rescind all the contracts and resell those properties at the higher rate. Now, a lot of people got dudded by this, obviously, because developers look out for themselves. So the Supreme Court's intervened, and now in New South Wales, which I'll speak just for New South Wales, now this means that the developer does not have the right to unilaterally rescind a contract without justification first to the Supreme Court. Now, there are circumstances where the Supreme Court will, permit the rescission of contracts. Otherwise, a rescission has to be mutually agreed between yourself and the developer. So if the developer approaches you and says, we'd like you to rescind this contract, you can say, no, I'm buying it at the price we said. And you have every right to do that. If the developer doesn't want to agree, they have to go to the Supreme Court, which they won't do if they don't have grounds. So what's starting to happen is now developers are trying to trick people into agreeing to a rescission. So they'll send out an email going, this project is no longer viable. We've halted construction. Please click here to acknowledge your understanding of this. As soon as you click here and go, yep, I understand, You just agreed to rescind your contract. So be really careful and know your rights under an off-the-plan contract. If the market moves up and you're in a position to settle, don't let them trick you into a rescission. You do not have to do that. They have to take you to the Supreme Court if they want to enforce that. Excuse me. And then, of course, I've got access to finance there, which we've talked about. The example there is, imagine 2020, 2021. We had the government, excuse me. So the last one there, I've got access to finance, which we've touched on, but the example there I've got is 2021 to 2024. So say you purchased a 3-year off the plan unit. 2021, if you recall, we had COVID, the market was pumping, the government was throwing money at everyone. Everyone was, the market was like, I think it peaked in second half of 2021. It went hard, right? Yeah. So imagine buying, in that FOMO environment and paying good money on an off-the-plan contract, thinking that gravy train was going to keep going, right? Interest rates were really low. You could secure a loan for under 2%. Things were looking sweet, right? Fast forward 3 years, say it's 2024, last year we're looking to settle. Interest rates are, 6.5%, 7%, which means you're being assessed even higher than that. The market's plateaued out. It's sort of the same as 2021 because it sort of peaked and then regressed back down. So you're sort of price-wise at a similar kind of point, maybe a bit up, maybe a bit down, but essentially the same price point. You've made no capital growth in that 3 years because you've missed the little hump. But now interest rates are so much higher, you can't settle. So be really worried about that. We've got a recent example in the last 5 years where for a lot of people, that was a reality, a massive, massive wake-up call for a lot of people that counted chickens that were too far away from hatching. Market goes up, interest rates go up too. All right, next one. Brand new off the plan, but this time we're looking at house and land packages. All right, this one's a beast of its own because you're purchasing two things. You're purchasing the dwelling and you're purchasing the land. Yeah. So what we've got here again is different opportunities to purchase. So you tend to find house and land packages are part of master plans, master plan communities, much, much bigger developments that might involve parks, town centres, shopping areas, community halls, whatever.
And a lot of people think that they're purchasing a house and land package. They always hear, when you've got a plot of land, you must, it can't go wrong. Well, can it?
It can if you're not smart. I mean, like we said, land value will always go up, dwelling value will always go down. So you've got to get that balance right. Make sure you're investing in good land because no matter what you put on top of it, the dwelling on it is just your means of income.
Yep.
The investment is the land. So that's the bit you've got to get right. So what we've got here is different opportunities to purchase. So you've got these big master plan communities and then they'll release in stages to control scarcity. When they control scarcity, they control supply. Supply will inform demand. So just know that when you're buying into these communities, how big are the communities, how many stages, how many dwellings, what are they actually offering? So is the scarcity real or perceived? Be really, really, really clever there. Now, in terms of inclusions and fixtures, you'll have a little bit more freedom with these ones. So you might be able to choose from pre-selected packages, pre-selected floor plans. So there might be half a dozen different houses and you pick which one you want on your block of land. And some freedom and choice with variation. So you might be able to move a bedroom, or, you might have a bit of freedom, not a whole lot, but a little bit of freedom. And it gives you, again, that illusion of control. Now, this is the bit where they get you. This is their selling point, the 2-part contract. So when you're purchasing a brand new house and land packaging, brand new house and land package, you're buying it in 2 parts. The first part is the land component. So they'll get you to sign a contract for the purchase of the land for a price that reflects land value, the price you're paying for the land. Now, what they'll do is they'll sell you the land at a massive discount. And they'll tell you that they're doing that to save you stamp duty because stamp duty is only payable on the house. When you then engage the builder and build, there's no stamp duty on a build. So they'll drill down the price of the land under the guise of saving you stamp duty. What you're really doing is you are saving the developer capital gains tax because he's undersold the land, and you're saving the developer GST. So the developer who's created new stock has to pay GST on that new stock, so 10%. So if you imagine the cost of capital gains tax and on top of that the cost of GST, The developer loses a lot of that revenue in tax. So by drilling down the price of the land, they reduce the profit margin, therefore they reduce the tax. What they then do is when they sell you the land is they lock you into their builder because it's a house and land package. So they lock you into their choice of builder and you don't have freedom of choice with that. You are locked in as part of that one transaction. It's in your land contract, your sale of the land. So what they then do is they take that build contract and they make up for the shortfall on underselling the land on the build contract. So they pump up the cost of your build. And again, they go, well, if you've got a build contract worth this much, your depreciation will even it out for you, right? Because you get it back on your tax anyway. Yeah, but you've thoroughly inflated the price and overpaid for your build. So the ideal scenario there is try and get the land cheap, ditch the builder, run, get your own builder, and then you get both of them cheap. But they lock you in. And again, if you're not a savvy buyer, you're locked into an inflated build price, which they will sell to you as depreciable anyway. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now, when you fund your construction, remember, you've got to settle on the land first. So depending on how far away this master plan community is from settlement on the land, you've got to be able to settle on the land. So the same risk with buying off the plan applies. What are interest rates doing? Can you settle on the land? Then you've got to fund the build. So you now have to apply for a construction loan. And construction loans are a whole other beast. Inflated interest rates. Okay, unless you're building with cash, you need a construction loan. There are two types of construction loans. The first is a fixed price contract. The other is a cost plus model. Now with house and land packages, it's likely to be a fixed price contract because they've sold it to you as a package. People think that a fixed price contract is a safety net because they know up front what their costs are going to be. But think of it from the builder's perspective. He doesn't know what unexpected costs are going to come up. He doesn't know what delays are going to be, what the weather is going to do. A month of rain delays everyone's builds by a month. He's got to pay trades that have nothing to do. What the builder has to do when determining the price of a fixed price contract is cover every possible contingency, and you are then paying for every possible contingency. So we're already inflating the build contract to compensate for underselling on the land, and then we're inflating the build contract again to cover contingencies that may or may not ever happen. But because it's fixed price, the builder has to cover himself and protect his margin.
That's right.
With a cost plus model, you agree to a margin with the builder. So what you do is you pay invoices directly and you negotiate with the builder as your representative directly with trade. So, yep, this is the scope of work. Yep, this is what I want. Yep, that's the quote I'll go with. And then you have an agreed upon margin with the builder, say 20, 25%. And then you pay that to the builder as a management fee separately. So you have control and collaboration with your builder the whole time. A lot of builders, for obvious reasons, don't love this. The other reason that a lot of builders don't love this is because people won't pay. Okay, the banks tend not to lend on it because the banks don't know how viable the project is when they don't know the cost of the project. Because with cost plus, it's pay as you go, right? There's no limit. You could overspend, you could overcapitalize, and the bank goes, no, I'm not lending against that. So a lot of banks won't lend on cost plus models for build contracts. You've got to be a cash client for that builder, and you've got to have a good relationship with the builder to have access to a cost plus model. So that locks you into fixed price, paying too much for things you may or may not have to worry about. So again, what are the advantages of buying brand new? The advantages that are sold to you are that you save stamp duty on the land. Okay, what's that? 5%, give or take, of purchase price. You can negotiate 5% off an established property.
Easily.
And you get that on the house and the land, not just the land. What are the other advantages they sell? Depreciation. You can get that on anything under 40 years.
A lot will sell you that it's only 10, but not true.
Yeah. And then you still have the issues of oversupply, everything settling at the same time, flooding the market with rentals, not being able to settle if interest rates go up. All the same risks apply, but you're signing up. Like, this is what I don't get. Why?
Yeah.
You're signing up for a lot of uncertainty when certainty in better conditions is available to you. There's no shortage of off-the-plan stock. They're big developments. So I really struggle with the why, and that's why we've done this masterclass, because a lot of questions we get is, I want to buy new. I've been told new is better. I want the depreciation. I've got to be the first owner because the second owner doesn't get the benefits. It boggles my mind some of the misinformation that is out there on this topic. So please, if you can, watch this one alongside the masterclass on established properties and really examine why there's this push for brand new, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No.
Okay. So if we go back to those two types of building contracts, the fixed price is easier to finance because you're giving certainty to the bank about this is what it's going to cost, therefore it's viable. With the cost plus, we said there's risk there. There are ways to mitigate risk. Like if you can be a cost plus client and you can build with cash and have a good relationship with the builder, yeah, okay, it might work. But the thing is, if you've got that kind of cash and you're that well connected with the builder, you're not buying house and land packages. You're doing your own knockdown, you know what I mean? Like it kind of crosses and blurs the line between, well, what's their ideal client? Who's your ideal provider for this service? I just don't see how it's feasible for the everyday investor. Unless you've got cash and good relationships and all of that, it just doesn't work because you're buying uncertainty with the fear of with FOMO, with the fear of missing out. That's essentially what we're dealing with here. So what does it come down to? Not all brand new purchases are the same. We started with brand new established. I'm kind of okay with that. But the off-the-plan stuff, I'm really not comfortable with. For my personal risk mitigation, I'm not okay with it. If you are, examine why. If you're getting caught up in the new and shiny and the tax benefits and all that, just examine, are you really forfeiting those things buying established? So the question, brand new established versus brand new off the plan versus established and then you do your own renovations when you're ready and financially able and you still get all your depreciation on anything under 40 years old. What is the verdict? What is the better investment property? Neither of the new. Always established, and always, if you want the benefit of the new, knock down, rebuild, or renovate yourself. So you buy something that's 30 years old. It's got 10 years left of depreciation, and you know there's a good chance that the market's going to double in that 10 years, as it tends to do. So imagine buying something, you're still collecting your depreciation for 10 years. At the 40-year mark, you might go, you know what? I'm ready to knock down, rebuild. I'm going to restart my 40-year clock, still get my brand new house, but what's funding my build this time? Not a construction, whatever. I can draw equity because my property's doubled.
Yeah.
So you've locked in your building funding costs, your construction loan, because you've got the asset itself to borrow against. You don't have to worry about settling an off-the-plan contract. You're collecting rent from day one while you're growing equity. Like it's the same benefits tax-wise. You're still getting your brand new product. You're still buying your, if you want to talk about the stamp duty savings, a 30-year property, you're more likely to buy closer to land value anyway because it's 30 years old, rather than buying brand new from a developer and paying a premium for that. So when you really sit down and think about it, it stops making sense once you start asking all these questions. So we hope you've learned something from this about buying brand new and off the plan and what to be cautious about, because there's a lot to be cautious about when you're buying something too soon that you can't see, that you can't assess. You don't know what the lending landscape is going to look like at settlement. You don't know the supply issues. You don't know the good streets and the bad streets. You don't know the proportion of owner-occupiers and rent. You're just buying so much uncertainty.
Yeah. Yep.
So be really, really careful with that. What we've got here is the QR code again. If you want to know more about this topic, please do book in a call with Dragan, because it's well worth your time to really know what you're doing when you're investing. And Dragan can give really great advice there. If the QR code's not working, propertysession.com.au.
The link is somewhere here. We'll have we'll email that as well. So look, guys, even if you're starting off or you're close to starting off, even you're unsure of where to start, just book in a call. I'm happy to take a 15-minute discovery call, discuss your circumstance and how we can help, or even if it's just some advice that you could take away and obviously learn more than what you've started from. So happy to help. Book in a session and let's have a chat. And Amanda did a great job, didn't she? Thank you, Amanda.
It's all good. You'll get sick of my voice, so if you book a call, you'll get his voice. It'll be a nice change.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, guys. Have a good night.